Hello everyone and welcome to another science video of the Massachusetts Regional Library. I'm Miss Stephanie, one of the children's librarians here, and today we're going to be doing experiments using salt and pepper. And salt and pepper, you think, oh, what's so special about that? You know, we just put it on our food, no big deal, right? Well, there's some science behind both of those things. And so I have two experiments which will show that to you. So what you're going to need is you're going to need some water. You're going to need salt. I use kosher salt, but table salt will work too. You're going to need a tablespoon, 1/4 cup, and 1 cup. You'll need like a small lid or plastic lid worked for me for one of the experiments. Some food coloring, a clear cup or jar, also some black pepper, vegetable oil, and dish soap. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, for our first experiment, we're going to be doing a salt volcano. And so what I have, so you see the jar in front of me, and I measured out a cup of water. So let me pour that water into the jar. Okay, and put that aside. And then I'm going to put a few drops of green food coloring in just to make it a little more visible about what we're going to do. So let me put that in there and let that settle for a minute. And then once that is settled, then I'm going to add the vegetable oil. So just let it settle down. So then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add the vegetable oil. So let's add the vegetable oil. Okay, and set that aside. And as you're seeing on the video, like there's two layers forming. The oil and the water are liquids that can't mix together because the water is heavier than the oil. So let me move this up a little. And so we have two layers, and let's see what happens when we add the salt in. I added 1 tablespoon. So let's see what happens. Oh, it's bubbling. Can you guys see the bubbles? It's erupting. And it's like coming to the surface. And you may be wondering why there are bubbles. Well, it's because that since the oil is less dense than the water, so it floats to the top. And the escaped oil from the salt wants to come to the top again. But it clung to the salt when it sunk down to the bottom. So once it comes back up, that's what those bubbles that you are seeing in here are. So let's just watch it for another minute, and I think I'm going to shake it. I'm going to stir the salt up and see if we can get a few more bubbles in here. Hold on a second. Let's see what happens. I'm going to pour a little more salt back in there. There we go. We can see a few more bubbles in there. And that is our salt volcano. And this is what the experiment looks like when you don't put the food coloring in. All right, so for our pepper experiment, what we're going to do is I filled this lid with some water in it, and I'm actually going to put a few drops of the food coloring in there just to help it stand out a little more. Like when we can see what this pepper does. Let me just get this water. There we go, that's better. All right, so then the next thing we're going to do, now that we have our water, is let's put it over here. Yeah, there we go. That should work out better. So then I'm going to put the black pepper on the surface of the water. And I just got a few packs. I'm going to put them in here. Okay. And then when I stick my finger in here, it just kind of clumps together, right? It doesn't really go anywhere. Well, let's see what happens when we put some dish soap on my finger. So I'm rubbing it on there. It went apart. Why is that? It's because soap it lowers the surface tension, or how tightly the water molecules are together. And the water doesn't like being near the dish soap, so it's going away from the dish soap as far as it can, and it's taking the pepper particles with it. So when we began, we had all the pepper clumped here, but now because I put my finger in with the dish soap, it's scattered to the edges of the lid. So that is our experiment with pepper and water. All right, I hope you enjoyed doing those experiments with salt and pepper, and I have a couple books related to today's experiment. The first one is called Your Body on Salt, and it just talks about how important salt is we need salt to stay functioned, but if we have too much or too little of it, that can throw our body out of balance. And so it's a very interesting book. It just talks about how salt is made, like how we get salt from the earth, and I'll share a couple facts with you about salt. And did you know that we have about 3.5 ounces of salt in our bodies, and it helps with digestion, and that dry salt is the only rock that we eat, and it's a natural mineral. And there we go. And salt is very interesting. Lots of good information in this book. And then since we made a salt volcano, I thought I would share a book with you on actual volcanoes, which fortunately are not in Virginia, but it's still fun to learn about them. And it just talks about the different volcanic explosions that have occurred, what happens when a volcano erupts and what is inside a volcano, and the lava that comes out of it. Lots of interesting information. And here's like one of the oldest volcanic eruptions, Pompeii. So just a lot of good information if you want to know about the science about volcanoes and also the history behind them as well. Thank you so much for joining me. I look forward to sharing more experiments with you soon. Have a good day. Bye.